What if the story you think you know about Charles Manson isn't the whole story? You've been told the story of a psychedelic cult, mesmerized by Beatles lyrics into sparking a race war called Helter Skelter. It's a terrifying story. It was the official story, the one that secured a conviction. But what if it was also a convenient fiction, masking a simpler, more brutal truth? This isn't a story that begins with a prophecy. It begins with a botched drug deal, a bloody sword, and a desperate criminal cover-up that has been largely ignored for over 50 years. To understand what really happened in the summer of '69, we have to look past the glamour of Sharon Tate and the chaos of Cielo Drive. We have to go back to a hot July night 1 month earlier. This is where the first domino fell. On July 1st, 1969, Manson's right-hand man, Tex Watson, ripped off a drug dealer named Bernard Crowe. Enraged, Crowe called the family's headquarters at Spahn Ranch and threatened to kill everyone. For a leader like Manson, whose authority was built on an aura of power, this was a challenge he could not ignore. He took a gun, drove to Crowe's Hollywood apartment, and shot him point blank. As Manson fled, he made two critical, nearly fatal mistakes. First, he believed Crowe was dead. Second, based on faulty information, he became convinced that Crowe was a member of the Black Panther Party. Suddenly, Manson wasn't a guru preparing for a mystical apocalypse. He was a small-time con man who believed he had just murdered a member of a powerful militant group. He was terrified. Spahn Ranch was transformed from a commune into a paranoid armed camp. The motive driving him wasn't ideology yet. It was pure animal fear of retaliation. The situation was about to get much worse. On July 25th, Manson dispatched another group, including Bobby Beausoleil, to the home of a music teacher, Gary Hinman, to violently collect money Manson believed he was owed. When Hinman refused, Manson himself arrived. And this detail is crucial because it shatters the myth of the remote puppet master. This wasn't a delegated task. Manson, personally, took a sword and slashed Gary Hinman across the face. He then ordered Bobby to finish the job. After Beausoleil stabbed Hinman to death, they scrawled "Political Piggy" on the wall in Hinman's blood and drew a panther paw, a blatant, desperate attempt to frame the Black Panthers for the murder and throw police off their trail. And here we arrive at the single most critical event, the fact that unravels the entire Helter Skelter narrative. On August 6, 1969, just 2 days before the Tate murders, Bobby Beausoleil was arrested. Police found him asleep in Gary Hinman's car. With him, they found the murder weapon. Let's connect the dots. Manson is living in terror, convinced the Black Panthers are coming for him over the Crowe shooting. Now, his key follower is in jail for a murder they had just tried to pin on those same Panthers. The cover-up is about to collapse. So what's the more likely motive for the very next crime? To kickstart a mystical race war, or to commit a shockingly brutal, high-profile copycat murder, complete with the word pig written in blood, to convince police that the real Hinman killer was still on the loose? The Tate murders weren't the opening act of Helter Skelter. They were a violent, desperate attempt to create an alibi. To command such loyalty, Manson's control had to be absolute. And it wasn't just about the Beatles, he was a student of control systems. In prison, he had become a devotee of Scientology, completing over 150 hours of auditing, a process of forced, intimate confession. He repurposed this technique at the ranch, forcing his followers to reveal their deepest fears and secrets, which he then expertly weaponized against them. He blended this with dogma from a cult called the Process Church of the Final Judgment, which preached the union of Christ and Satan. This allowed him to frame any action, no matter how evil, as a necessary part of a cosmic whole. He wasn't just a charismatic hippie, he was a systematic manipulator. The family wasn't just a cult, it was a gang, and it enforced its rules with brutality. In late August 1969, they murdered a ranch hand named Donald Shorty Shea because they suspected he was a police informant, a rat. This wasn't a ritual, it was a gangland execution to enforce a code of silence. This ruthlessness extended right into the courtroom, leading to the trial's darkest secret. Everyone knows Manson carved an X on his forehead, but few know what happened to Ronald Hughes, the defense attorney for Leslie Van Houten. Hughes began to defy Manson's orders from jail, fighting to separate his client's defense from Charlie's. He refused to let her perjure herself to save Manson. During a 10-day recess in the trial, Ronald Hughes went camping. He was never seen alive again. His decomposed body was found months later, his cause of death officially ruled undetermined. But family members have since claimed he was murdered on Manson's orders as retaliation, a chilling message to anyone else who dared to cross Charlie. They didn't just disrupt the trial from the gallery, they allegedly eliminated an officer of the court. So why was this more logical story of drug deals and cover-ups brushed aside for the sensational Helter Skelter narrative? Perhaps because the prosecutor, Vincent Bugliosi, was a brilliant storyteller. He understood that a motive rooted in fear and bungled crime was messy, but a motive of an apocalyptic race war inspired by the world's biggest rock band was a terrifying story that would captivate a jury and later the world in his best-selling book. It made Manson a devil-like monster, a generational antichrist rather than just a desperate, violent con man. And perhaps the story is even darker. A 2-decade investigation by journalist Tom O'Neill, documented in the book Chaos, unearths disturbing questions about Manson's suspiciously lenient parole officers, his proximity to CIA-funded LSD research clinics, and evidence of a potential prosecutorial cover-up. It suggests the simplified story we were all told may have been constructed to hide a much more complex and disturbing truth. The Manson case isn't just about the evil one man can do. It's about the power of the story that gets told and which truths get left behind. For over 50 years, we've been fascinated by the myth of the monster. But the truth, rooted in the violent, forgotten events of July 1969, is far more logical and, in its own way, even more chilling. The question isn't just what Charles Manson did, it's why we, for half a century, have been so willing to believe the story we were told, and what other truths we might be choosing to ignore.